Georgie. Aren't you going to say hello? Oh, come on, bucko. Don't you want a balloon?
I'm not supposed to take stuff from strangers. My dad said so.
Very wise of your dad, Georgie. Very wise indeed.
In the second half of the 20th century, there has been a change in perception surrounding clowns in America. There has been a mainstream subversion of the meaning of the clown in the last 30 years. It seems that today, people are more interested in clowns as a horror trope than as a source of mirth, and there is now a widespread insistence that clowns are scary. When I found this picture of Slivers Oakley on Reddit, most of the comments were talking about how creepy it was. I mean, why? What's so creepy about this? There is a legitimate phobia of clowns called Coulrophobia. Why it was given that name, I don't know. It actually doesn't make any sense. The word clown was not derived from some Greek or Latin equivalent like kouros. It's a word native to the Germanic languages. And also, if you're going to create a Greek or Latin cognate through backwards etymology, like they did with the prefix Sino to refer to China, couldn't you come up with something better than Coulro? Where did the R come from? What about Cluno? That would make more sense. I think Clownophobia would have been a much better term than Coulrophobia. But that's just a side note. Anyway, there are people who are genuinely terrified of clowns. The mere image of a clown sends them into shock.
This one's kind of scary. Oh, gosh. Go ahead and take a look at it.
But most people who think of clowns as scary do not have coulrophobia. They're just normal people who happen to find the image of a clown unsettling. And I guess there is something kind of unsettling about a clown. This gets to a premise called the Uncanny Valley, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, where creatures who look like humans but are a little bit off in some way can be terrifying. Like something just isn't right, and it threatens our sense of security. That's why people with deformities can be unsettling to look at. Just by adjusting some of the features on the human face a bit, you can turn someone from a man into a monster.
A baby? A monster?
After he directed Dracula, Todd Browning made a movie called Freaks, which instead of putting Lon Chaney in heavy prosthetics, opted to show real-life people with deformities and disabilities as part of a circus sideshow.
To me, you're a man. But to her, you're only something to laugh at. The whole circus, they make fun by you and her. Let them laugh. They're swine. I love her. They can't hurt me.
This movie was very controversial at the time, not because it was offensive to people with disabilities, but because people with disabilities were offensive to the general public. People thought these circus freaks looked and acted very strangely, and it was scary and off-putting to a lot of people.
Freak! 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 Get out of here!
The circus sideshow ended up being a place where people with deformities and disabilities could end up, because it was one of the few places they were able to make a living. Back in medieval times, some of the court fools were people with legitimate mental disabilities, who were laughed at for being genuinely stupid rather than being mere entertainers emulating stupidity. When the deformed hunchback of Notre Dame enters the ugly-faced competition at the Feast of Fools, he is elected and crowned King of Fools, because he doesn't even have to try to make his face look ugly, it just is that way. There has always been an association between deformity and clowning. There is even a skin deformity called harlequin ichthyosis, where babies are born with extremely thick skin that cracks apart, forming patterns that kind of resemble the motley worn by Harlequin. And as much as there is an association between deformity and clowning, there is also an association between deformity and horror. People don't like the sight of those with disabilities or deformities. They are not pleasant to look at. Perhaps it is instinct to avoid the deformed or unusual, because they could carry an infectious disease. Consider rabies, for instance, or possibly mange. These are diseases that affect an animal's body and sometimes an animal's mind, making them look and act in a strange, disfigured way, and they are very contagious. But this can lead to some bad consequences for the people afflicted with non-contagious conditions. As time passed, clowns became more and more grotesque in their appearance. They wore strange headpieces that sometimes gave them overly large or pointed cone heads, almost reminiscent of people with microcephaly, with patchy, scraggly hair, large red noses, big clown shoes, and unnatural face paint. The clown gradually resembled more and more a person with a strange deformity or disability. And this was mirrored in the way the clown behaved. Clowns don't behave like normal people. They behave more like people with disabilities, adults with the minds of children.
I know we're going to be friends, too, because I like to do everything boys and girls like to do.
A clown intentionally breaks social norms, and while this can be entertaining, it can also be read the wrong way. It can be read not like this is a funny character who is breaking social norms because he is funny, but that this is a disturbed or disabled person who doesn't understand how to read social cues and therefore cannot be relied on for normative communication, which automatically makes him feel more threatening and, in a way, creepy.
What's the matter? Are you deaf? Play to you. I offer you the fool's crown, and you bite me.
In the same way, a schizophrenic man ranting to himself on the street can be amusing to some people and scary to others. The clown lives in this ambiguous space, which for most of history was read positively. But as the clown's tricks begin to lose their luster, this ambiguity is read a little differently. But as much as people are afraid of strange or unconventional-looking people, they are also attracted to them, because our curiosity takes over. The ugly is very appealing to man. One shrinks from the ugly, but wants to look at it. We want to see how deep the hole goes, how dark and depraved the picture can get. There is something subversive about a clown, something maybe even immoral. Something that lights up our childish curiosity for the macabre. The clown commits acts of violence and passes them off as a joke. The clown is a psychopath or sociopath who enjoys inflicting pain on other clowns. Are clowns even human? We've talked already about the way clowns are dehumanized, how the act of putting on the costume forces the clown to smile and pretend to be happy even when he is suffering. The costume and the face paint renders a clown something other than human. He becomes a different species. A species without real emotions. A species who telegraphs everything in a highly exaggerated way to make up for the fact that he doesn't actually feel anything. A species for whom the breadth and depth of human emotional life is nothing more than a burlesque farce.
When you're happy, beat your hands together, slap your thighs, smile from ear to ear, hug yourself, and spin around like a top. When you're sad, be terribly sad. Bury your head in your knees, or lie flat on your back and beat your fists and heels around the ground.
If the clown is happy, he is extremely happy. If he is sad, he is performatively sad. If he is hurt, it is funny. But nobody stops to ask him how he really feels. A common theme in many of the sad clown dramas of the 19th and early 20th centuries is clown murder.
Non ti chiedo il nome o la tua vita, il nome.
The clown's true feelings of betrayal and heartbreak are so repressed and so unnoticed by the world around him that the only way he can take out this aggression is to kill someone, or to kill himself. Perhaps clowns are viewed as scary today because clowns have always been scary, but not everybody realized it yet. The face paint of a clown often obscures the emotions in his face. The dark spots around the eyes and mouth can prevent the mind from fully being able to process what's going on in the face, and the resulting confusion can be unsettling, in the same way people are unsettled when they see a low-functioning autistic person having a meltdown, because they don't know how to process what these people are going through on an emotional level. The emotional experience is too foreign to be properly conveyed. Traditionally, these sorts of people would be locked away into so-called insane asylums, an ironic name because now the word asylum has been distorted from its original meaning because of its association with these prisons, which more closely resemble torture chambers than hospitals. This is what people for much of modern history have done with their mentally ill, just because they don't want to have to look at them or deal with them. And so is it any wonder that people are unsettled by clowns, when this is how a clown looks and behaves?
You must love a certain amount of fear when you've got fear of clowns, because here's somebody standing in front of you looking like a fruitcake, making noises with their nose and whoopee cushions, and you're frightened. Now, I understand some really small children seeing a large person in such a costume might be frightened. But an adult? I mean, I'm wondering, as a child, did some kind of clown that was dangerous attack them? I haven't heard that one, but I believe it's possible. You know, some of the most prescribed medications are anti-fear medications. People have all these phobias. There are books on phobias, one of which would be the phobia of clowns.
A lot of the scariness of a clown is context dependent. When you look at a still image of a clown, it can appear a little creepy because you don't have any context to know what the clown's personality is, or how he is feeling. When you see clowns performing in motion, they very rarely look creepy, unless you happen to be someone with coulrophobia. Usually when a clown performs, he telegraphs his sympathetic qualities enough that there is usually nothing threatening about him. But if a clown wanted to be threatening, he certainly could, and the face paint, which often resembles war paint, can be a valuable asset to that goal. War paint is traditionally applied to the face in order to make the warrior look less human, more monstrous, and therefore more threatening. It's no wonder then why clown makeup would accidentally accomplish the same goal. Ronald McDonald isn't usually scary, but when he becomes a stalker, suddenly he's terrifying. But where did everybody suddenly get this idea that clowns are scary? Well, I think some kids have had bad experiences with clowns in real life. I'm reminded of the film A Christmas Story, where the main character Ralphie goes to sit on Santa's lap, and something about it just isn't right. The insincerity of Santa and his rude elf helper are not just irritating, they're also unsettling. They are overwhelming for a child, being put in a situation where you are small and all of these big adults are acting in a way that feels totally insincere and phoned in, trying to entertain you as if they hate you, is pretty fucking creepy. And it's possible that many children have had these sorts of experiences with clowns. As I mentioned in part 1, the clown insists upon himself. He insists that he is funny. He insists that he is entertaining. He insists that you like to watch him whether you actually do or not. There is something obnoxious about a clown who just won't take a hint. And there is something scary about a person who is relentlessly obnoxious and will not listen to reason. Nowhere is this appalling dynamic more elegantly represented than in the movie Dumbo. If I had to guess, I would say that Dumbo has done more to dismantle the reputation of the circus clown than any other work of media. And you might be surprised to hear that, but let me explain, because I think this theory actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Think about how many children have watched Dumbo. It came out in the year 1941. It's really old and has had many re-releases over the years, which have contributed to its longevity as a Disney classic.
Can you remember the very first movie that made any kind of a really lasting impression on you?
Yes,
Why did it?
Well, there is. I mean, the title may be unfortunate, but the first film that made a big impression on me was Walt Disney's 1941 classic, Dumbo.
When you think about Dumbo, you probably have in your mind the image of a baby elephant flying through the air with a smile on his face, having a good time. Or maybe you think about the Dumbo ride from Disneyland and how much fun that was. Dumbo conjures up an impression that is wholesome and cute. But when you actually watch Dumbo, you remember that this is a dark, twisted, and scary movie.
What'll I do? What'll I do? What an unusual view!
It's a movie that takes the classic American pastime of the three-ring circus and rips it into a bloody mess. It shatters the illusion of the circus as wholesome entertainment with every fiber of its being, and it places the viewer in the perspective of a scared toddler being absolutely put through the ringer by a loud, obnoxious, and intimidating environment in which he is bullied, ridiculed, and abused by everyone around him, and separated from his mother by the cruel inhumanity of the system that is enslaving the both of them. For a lot of children, Dumbo is their first exposure to the circus and the circus clown. Dumbo was the movie that taught me what a clown was, and if this is the movie that introduces children to clowns, you better bet that children are not going to like clowns, because the clowns in this movie are not friendly. They're not even funny. They are, from a certain perspective, and from the main character's perspective at that, scary. One of the most memorable scenes in Dumbo is the fireman spec, which was a real spec that they used to do all the time in the three-ring circus, and it was very popular back in the day. They stopped doing it eventually because somebody realized it was dangerous to play around with real fire in a tent.
The canvas burned quickly because it had been coated with paraffin that had been diluted with gasoline, which was considered a waterproofing technique.
There are also a couple of scenes where the clowns are shown in a dressing tent in silhouette, which is an interesting animation choice because it again serves to dehumanize them and keep them mysterious, which makes them scary. The clowns in this scene are shown talking over each other with these really gruff blue-collar voices, laughing maniacally and drinking alcohol, which is a far cry from the Ronald McDonald who likes to do everything that boys and girls like to do.
Here, boys, this calls for a real celebration. Come and get it.
Poison, am I in toy stealing?
I could use one of them myself.
These clowns are grown-ups who are not relatable to children at all. They even explicitly mention how they don't care about the elephant's feelings.
Be careful. You'll hurt the little guy.
Oh, go on. Elephants ain't got no feelings.
No, they made of rubber.
Everything about the composition of these scenes with us just peering through the tent at these silhouettes gives off the impression that we are witnessing the dark, seedy underbelly of the circus that we are not supposed to see. Around the same time that Dumbo came out, a comic book series called Batman was becoming popular with children and teenagers. Once again, a master criminal stalks the city streets, a criminal weaving a web of death about him, leaving stricken victims behind wearing a ghastly clown's grin, the sign of death from the Joker. Only two dare to oppose him, Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder. The two battle the grim jester called the Joker, a battle of wits and swift death, the only compromise. Tonight at precisely 12 o'clock midnight, I will kill Henry Claridge and steal the Claridge diamond. Do not try to stop me. The Joker has spoken. Henry Claridge then turns up dead with a freakish grin on his face, and underneath the diamond case the police find a Joker card. A man smiles a smile without mirth, rather a smile of death, the awesome, ghastly grin of the Joker. In 1940, on one of the early issues of Batman, the Joker was introduced, and despite his clown makeup, he was treated pretty seriously as a psychopathic killer. We've seen killer clowns in the past, but this one was the first serial killer clown. The Joker's smile was a smile of death. A smile that actually goes back to Conrad Veidt in an old silent film called The Man Who Laughs. Supposedly, this is the film where the look of the Joker was inspired from, and personally, I can see it. Lon Chaney was originally offered this role, and I imagine he would have taken it if he could, because it's a good role for him. It's based on a Victor Hugo novel, the same guy who wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame, a movie that Lon Chaney did star in, and it's about a child whose face is disfigured into a permanent smile by the Comprachicos, who are gypsy traders in stolen children who practice unlawful surgical acts whereby they carve the living flesh of these children and transform them into monstrous clowns and jesters. Here, we see for the first time on film the idea of a clown or a jester as a monster. The movie even features a conniving evil jester named Barkilphedro, and it says of him, "But all his jests were cruel, and all his smiles were false." And that's really the theme of the movie, the false smile. Gwynplaine has a permanent smile on his face, but this of course causes him to never be happy. Yet he makes money as part of a circus-style traveling roadshow where he is famously called the Laughing Man. But he is not laughing, he only looks like he's laughing, and nobody seems to notice. He laments, "Hear how they laugh at me, nothing but a clown." Again, the clown is made into a symbol of alienation and dehumanization. This movie therefore combines the trope of the sad clown with the trope of the evil clown, and it also shows the connection between clowns and disabled or deformed people, or in this man's case, disfigured. The deeper you look, the more you see the killer clown trope everywhere. There's just something about clowns that people have always detested, because they keep making them into murderers. Even Jimmy Stewart played a killer clown in the movie The Greatest Show on Earth. Now, he wasn't a murderous clown, he only performed a euthanasia on his terminally ill wife, but still, he killed someone. And he had to go undercover as a circus clown to hide from the law, stripping himself of his identity and replacing it with the clown name Buttons, much like the character in He Who Gets Slapped. Even Emmett Kelly played a killer clown. Seriously, in a movie called The Fat Man, Emmett Kelly plays a killer clown. Killer clowns are everywhere, but it wasn't until the 1970s that the killer clown became something more than a trope of fiction, because that's when a birthday clown named Pogo was outed as a homosexual serial abuser and murderer. Pogo's real name was John Wayne Gacy, and he loved teenage boys. He tried every trick in the book to get straight teenage boys to suck him off. That was his favorite thing. He seems to have been more of an oral guy than an anal guy, and he was successful numerous times. He even went to jail for it once in the 1960s, and he got arrested for it several times after that, but he never got a significant prison sentence until 1978. Despite his history, John Wayne Gacy still managed to live a successful life as a community man in his neighborhood in Chicago, and most people were none the wiser about what he was doing at night. During his rape sessions, he'd often frame everything like he's a magician performing tricks for the victim. All in all, he killed about 23 boys and tucked the bodies under his house. As he stabbed his first murder victim to death, he had what he described as a mind-numbing orgasm, and said, "That's when I realized that death was the ultimate thrill." But John Wayne Gacy was not the only real-life killer clown. In 1990, a woman named Marlene Warren was shot point blank by a killer clown in costume right at her doorstep.
My mother opened the door and I heard, "How pretty." And I heard bang. I saw her fall and I ran toward her as the clown was walking away, and I saw that she'd been shot in the face. Well, it was a white face, nose, orangish red hair, and it was just a clown suit.
What does the clown do?
Calmly walks right back to the car.
In this way, the clown can be threatening because he disguises his identity. It can turn a person into a faceless person. I don't know whether this clown who shot Marlene Warren was smiling as he killed her, but given the wry messages on the balloons he left at her doorstep, it does appear that this person had a sense of humor and wasn't just using the clown costume as a mere disguise, which adds a layer of creepiness. Killer clowns are not just here to kill you, they're here to laugh while they kill you. The 80s saw a return to the more serious and threatening Joker, and with it came Tim Burton's 1989 film adaptation, which was Tim Burton's third major motion picture after Beetlejuice and his first major outing, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. If Bozo the Clown was a children's entertainer, then Pee-wee Herman was just a straight-up crackhead.
This is crack.
There's just something about this guy that I love.
Hi everybody, my name's Pee-wee, what's yours?
He was so totally out of his mind that people didn't know quite what to do with him. If you watch some of his earliest Pee-wee material, he has the audience in hysterics because they just don't know how else to respond to this guy.
Come here! Come here, listen to me! You are getting drowned, come here! Come here!
With his silly name, his iconic outfit, his funny voice, and childlike personality, Pee-wee Herman was definitely a clown persona if I have ever seen one, and he is genuinely hilarious at times.
Okay, here, I hear some hot dogs. Okay.
Even though he was ostensibly a children's entertainer, the Pee-wee character wasn't really created for that reason. His later television show, Pee-wee's Playhouse, was very popular among young adults as well as children. But Pee-wee's Big Adventure served as a first major movie outing not only for Paul Reubens and Tim Burton, but also the man who scored the film, Danny Elfman. Before he became a composer, Danny Elfman was a circus performer. After he left the circus, he joined his brother Richard Elfman's off-the-wall musical clown troupe, the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo, which you can see in this video of them performing at the Gong Show. After a few years of that, Danny Elfman disbanded the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo and created a new band just called Oingo Boingo. They did one of my favorite songs of the 80s called Little Girls. And they had a decidedly quirky, bizarre quality to their presentation, which was befitting Danny Elfman's circus background. And when you listen to a Danny Elfman film score, especially the ones he did for Tim Burton, you can definitely hear some of that Mystic Knight circus clown influence. So it's no stretch to imagine why these three odd little artists all came together to create this one movie, after which Tim Burton and Danny Elfman moved on to Beetlejuice, which featured Michael Keaton playing a decidedly clownish role as the ghost with the most, an exorcist whose job it is to remove humans from ghost haunts, rather than removing ghosts from human haunts.
What are your qualifications?
Well, I attended Juilliard. I'm a graduate of the Harvard Business School. I travel quite extensively. I lived through the Black Plague, and I had a pretty good time during that. I've seen The Exorcist about 167 times, and it keeps getting funnier every single time I see it. Not to mention the fact that you're talking to a dead guy. Now what do you think?
With his garish striped outfit, wacky hair, silly voice, quirky personality, practical jokes, and face paint, there is no doubting the fact that Beetlejuice is a clown. But he's a ghost clown. He's a clown who isn't averse to frightening people, and in fact, it's his job.
What I mean is, can you be scary?
Oh, I know what you're asking me. Can I be scary? What do you think of this?
Where other clowns are hired to make people laugh, Beetlejuice is hired to scare people, and he's not the only clown we'll see with that job. Tim Burton was one of the first mainstream directors to really capitalize on the goth aesthetic, as a sort of combination of Dracula and punk rock. Tim Burton's interpretation of this aesthetic also seems to have a little bit of Edward Gorey and Dr. Seuss in it. He utilized elements of it in his animated films like Vincent and The Nightmare Before Christmas, and I do think the makeup styles that give goths an intentionally corpse-like pallor, the frizzy out-of-bounds hair, and the use of stripes and monochromatic motleys can often give those in the goth community a somewhat clown-like appearance.
You can call me Joker. And as you can see, I'm a lot happier.
When Tim Burton brought the Joker to life on the big screen for the first time in 20 years, he opted for Jack Nicholson to play him. It was a perfect casting decision. Jack Nicholson's Joker, like The Man Who Laughs, is created by an incident of disfigurement as he falls into a vat of chemicals and emerges with white skin, red lips, green hair, and a permanent smile. The Joker, therefore, is not a clown by profession. He's a clown by mutilation. He is forcefully transformed into a clown. And to his credit, he takes it in stride and embraces it as his new lifestyle. Joker is even shown in the movie wiping skin-colored makeup off his face to reveal his true form. The Joker isn't a man playing a clown, he is a clown playing a man. A different species masquerading as one of us, which is the essence of the uncanny valley. While Jack Nicholson was getting famous for playing psychotic, smiling killers in Batman and Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of Stephen King's The Shining, the killer clown was becoming more real and present than ever before. And it was another Stephen King novel that really broke the door open for the scary clown. In 1986, Stephen King put out one of his most famous books, It.
I'll kill you all! I'll drive you crazy and I'll kill you all! I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
Not even he. This time, the clown is dehumanized into a pure, malevolent spirit. The demon of Stephen King's It is an extraterrestrial creature that disguises itself as a circus clown in order to lure children to their deaths and torment them psychologically, sort of like a cosmic version of the child catcher. 4 years later, It was adapted into a 2-part television movie starring Tim Curry as the evil clown Pennywise. This movie made a huge impression on children all over the country, and cemented the idea of the monstrous killer clown into iconic status. Interestingly, the look of Tim Curry's Pennywise is very similar to Bozo the Clown, and I can't imagine that many children after seeing it were very excited about tuning into the Bozo show again the next morning. Not long after it was published, an animated film was released under Hyperion Pictures called The Brave Little Toaster, a movie very much in the same vein as Dumbo, which appears on its surface and is often remembered to be a light film. But when you actually watch it, you see that it's pretty heavy and eerie and angsty.
I'm not an invalid. I was designed to stick in a wall. I like being stuck in this stupid wall. It's my function!
One of the most famous scenes was a nightmare sequence where the toaster dreams of a clown dressed as a firefighter. Obviously a reference to the old circus fireman spec as portrayed in Dumbo. Of course, the thing that a toaster would naturally be afraid of is water. And why a menacing clown? Because it's clear that by the late 1980s, clowns were officially scary, in a way they had never been before. It was just known that clowns are scary. Stephen King even said that the reason he made Pennywise a clown is because he thought that's the thing that would be scariest to a child. In 1981, reports started coming out of the Boston area that clowns were trying to abduct children. This idea of the sex-obsessed criminal dressing as a clown to abduct children took hold of this area in Boston, and numerous false police reports were filed from people who fell victim to the pervert clown mass hysteria. Perhaps it was inspired by stories of John Wayne Gacy. Later that month, similar reports started coming in from all over the country. Police started to realize that the source witnesses of most of these reports were children, which seemed to indicate that children were taking an interest in the idea of the clown as a bad guy, that there was something subversive about this idea that amused and perhaps even frightened some children, but in a way that was entertaining and sparked their imaginations. Perhaps being told by their parents that there were bad men lurking around their neighborhoods looking to abduct them was kind of a drag to a lot of these kids, and so to make it more entertaining, to put a whimsical, subversive spin on it, they took hold of these local news stories about bad clowns, and it became a widespread urban legend. It reminds me of the rumor kids used to pass around my school that the actor who played Barney the dinosaur was a child rapist. Kids love that kind of stuff, and they especially love making fun of entertainment that they deem beneath them as fare for younger children, and clowns can certainly fit that bill. A lot of children feel they are too old to be entertained by clowns, and so passing around these rumors about them gives these children a chance to playfully denigrate them. I remember hearing some distortions of the Pee Wee Herman porn theater incident getting passed around at school as well. Kids love these kinds of rumors, especially when they involve children's entertainers. The killer clown became such a well-known cliche that in 1988 a film was made called Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which took for granted the scariness of clowns and decided to have fun with the premise. It was made by Charles and Stephen Chiodo, who also did the special effects for Pee-wee's Big Adventure. This movie continues the process of dehumanizing clowns to the point where now They're an alien species from another planet coming to Earth to kill humans. Their spaceship looks like a circus tent, but it's also a big top. The killer clowns from outer space are not just men in makeup, they are distorted, mutated, deformed-looking cartoon clowns come to life. This is a creature feature, which fully completes the transition from man to monster that we have been tracing since The Man Who Laughs. And perhaps even before that, with Kanyo's little remark, "Aren't you a man? You're a clown." I would be surprised if the design of the killer clowns from outer space didn't have a big influence on Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal. And speaking of metal... One topic we cannot overlook in the study of scary clowns is shock rock, because the frightening effect that many clowns have accidentally achieved through their use of makeup and bizarre costumes has been intentionally cultivated by many rock and roll singers in order to give their music a sense of theatricality and scariness. Shock rock performers such as Alice Cooper and Kiss have often used makeup and eccentric costumes to turn themselves into the rock and roll equivalent of a clown. Another Stanley Kubrick movie called A Clockwork Orange featured a character played by Malcolm McDowell called Alex DeLarge, who is also something of a psycho killer clown in his own right. He doesn't wear makeup, but he does have an eccentric costume with false eyelashes on one of his eyes. And his personality is very quirky and humorous, very pantomimed, irreverent, theatrical, whimsical, not taking anyone seriously, all the while reveling in violence. He's like the killer version of a commedia dell'arte actor, and he had a big influence on the stage persona of Alice Cooper and also David Bowie, who dressed as a classic turn-of-the-century whiteface clown in the music video for his song Ashes to Ashes. When Kiss made their attempt at a comeback album in the late 90s, they called their lead single Psycho Circus, and it featured images of spooky clowns at the beginning of the music video. This got the attention of another group of shock rockers who were very influenced by Kiss, the Insane Clown Posse.
Ask you this about this life we live, and let me try to swerve some of this attention you give to
the Insane Clown Posse are a rap duo formed in 1989, and out of all of the shock rock groups, ICP has probably been the most interesting in terms of its branding, because despite their appearance, these two are actually quite clever marketers and entrepreneurs. They managed to create a whole independent record label that could distribute their music on the same level as the big companies who rejected them, like Disney, and they made an entire subculture. Not a fandom, a subculture around their own bizarre hardcore hip-hop version of clowning, which they call the Juggalos, a funny little portmanteau of juggle and gigolo.
We're just as amazed by Juggalo culture as the Juggalos are. We never planned this part of it. We never said, let there be Juggalos, you know what I'm saying? The Juggalo world created itself. The bond, the camaraderie is strictly magic.
You guys made a big announcement that you're going to sue the FBI.
We have to sue the FBI. Juggalos are so united and so passionate that the FBI scares them. People fear what they don't understand. So they label it a gang. If you do a crime and you're about to do a week in jail, if you're in a gang, that'll turn into a month in jail. So if Juggalo gets out there peddling weed, then he goes to get sentenced. Just because he's a Juggalo, he's gonna do an extra 3 weeks. That's fucked up.
And I stress that Juggalos are not just a fandom, because they don't view themselves as just a fandom. They are something else. They are a true subculture that has its own identity, whether you like it or not. So that raises the question, what is a Juggalo? Well, let me think for a second. Oh, he gets butt naked and then he walks through the streets winking at the freaks with a 2-liter stuck in his butt cheeks. What is a Juggalo? You just don't care. He might try to put a weave in his nut hair. 'Cause he could give a fuck less what a bitch thinks. He'd tell her that her butt stinks and all that. What is a juggalo? He drinks like a fish, and then he starts hugging people like a drunk bitch. Next thing, he's picking fights with his best friends. Then he starts with a hugging again. Fuck. What is a juggalo? A fucking lunatic. Somebody with a rope tied to his dick, then he jumps out a 10-story window. Oh. What is a juggalo? A juggalo? Ask what it is. Well, fuck if I know. What is a juggalo? I don't know. But I'm down with the clown, and I'm down for life, yo.
I think that's about it. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to ask anything you like. If anyone...
I never had a mom, I never had a dad. You know, most of us came from homes where it wasn't like a family, and we come here to replace that.
Exactly.
That's exactly it.
Really, anybody who's ever felt like they were outcast, you know, the downtrodden, you know, where society's trash, and we're real sick of it, so we decided to band together and we started a club, and we said what would be a neat name, Juggalos, and that's what it's all about.
When they come here and they have all these people just like them that are also into it, and you know you're not alone, it's like a sigh of relief.
ICP, a group that got popular for writing songs about murdering people, put a decidedly positive and wholesome spin on their Juggalo community, making it all about acceptance and being an individual. It's a place for people of a low-income, low-education background to feel accepted, even if they have some rude or off-putting attributes that would make them unacceptable in polite society.
Water, fire, air, and dirt. Fucking magnets, how do they work? And I don't want to talk to a scientist. Y'all motherfuckers lying and getting me pissed.
But ICP didn't just create a subculture. They also created a whole mythos for their work to take place in called the Dark Carnival. Now, I don't know much about ICP or the Dark Carnival, but I know the Dark Carnival is supposed to be some sort of purgatory or limbo state for the souls of dead people on their way to the afterlife. Each album they made, they called a Joker's card, and it featured as its main focus one of the characters from the Dark Carnival, one of the carnies, you could say, such as the Ringmaster, the Magician, the Great Malenko, Jack and Jake Jekyll, the amazing juggling Jekyll Brothers, and many other things like that. ICP is the most overtly clown and circus themed shock rock group out there, but there are a couple of others that come to mind as well. For instance, there's Slipknot, who started wearing these spooky masks in their live shows because Sean Clown Crahan started coming to rehearsals in a clown mask.
Who would win in a fight, you or Ronald McDonald?
You know, man, I don't know what to talk to you about, to be honest.
You don't think we have anything in common?
I'm pretty sure we don't have anything in common.
Well, I'm a heavy metal rocker.
Are you?
Yeah. If there was a heavy metal song about me, what would it be called?
Jackass.
Just hit me. I don't know if I pronounced his last name correctly, but whatever.
I'm just a rock and roll clown. Come on, girls!
But my favorite shock rocker is, and always will be, of course, Marilyn Manson, whose image was based on many influences, such as previous shock rockers, but also Willy Wonka and The Child Catcher, both of whom have a rather clownish persona, and a somewhat sinister one at that. His first album, Portrait of an American Family, contains carnivalish songs like Dope Hat, a song about drug addiction as it pertains to performance, disguised in a metaphor about a magician whose magic hat is controlling him. Very reminiscent of the Ridi Pagliaccio formula, as he describes the unthinking, uncaring audience in so many terms. The audience doesn't understand the pain he is going through as he performs his tricks for them, just like in the sad clown dramas of the 19th century. The samples used in Portrait of American Family were curated by one of the band's members who went by the name of Pogo, a nickname for his official combination stage name, Madonna Wayne Gacy, based of course on the clown serial killer John Wayne Gacy. Marilyn Manson also shows himself in whiteface on the cover of The Beautiful People, and in blackface on some of the material for Golden Age of Grotesque, which was an effort to connect back to the old days of early 20th century entertainment. Vaudeville, burlesque, cabaret, Golden Age Hollywood, and the circus were all a part of that picture. Manson has even said in an interview once, "It's my job to be the Pierrot," he says, the clown, in the theatrical sense. And he has compared himself as well to Joel Grey's character, the MC from the movie Cabaret, entertaining people with broad strokes and gaudiness in a time of political distress.
So, life is disappointing. Forget it. In here, life is beautiful.
Then, of course, there's Mechanical Animals, which doesn't have a whole lot of overt circus imagery, but its themes often pertain to the sad clown tropes we've discussed so far, being dehumanized and exploited as a source of amusement and made into a freak exhibit. In a sense, the scary clown can be viewed as he who slaps back, the clown who is tired of being a sad clown, the clown who takes his revenge on the world for beating him down, and takes revenge on the audience for laughing at his misery.
I am no more than an instrument of nature, a product of my environment.
Few clowns serve as a better example of this than Doink the Clown from the World Wrestling Federation, a clown who, quite literally, slapped back.
I've done a lot of parties in my time, but now I've got the biggest party of all at WrestleMania, Caesar's Palace, Las Vegas. And you know what I like best about Las Vegas? It's full of losers. The biggest loser of all is going to be getting into the ring with me. Yeah, you pineapple head. You say you can see a man's fear by looking into his eyes? Look into my eyes. What do you see? That's not going to be your problem in Las Vegas, because I ain't going to be clowning around.
Pro wrestling is one of the most interesting cultural artifacts of the 20th century. What started out as a competitive sport, much like boxing or mixed martial arts, gradually evolved into a form of theater more closely resembling the circus. Eventually, the appeal of wrestling became less about the suspense of who will win or lose the match, and more about the colorful pageantry of aggression. Audiences would pay money to see actors pretending to hit each other, but also pretending to hate each other in these fake feuds, which eventually evolved into full-blown storylines with plot twists. This concept in the wrestling world is known as kayfabe, an intentional blurring of the lines between fiction and real life. Predictably, kayfabe became interesting to people from outside the athletic world as well, including, famously, the comedian and performance artist Andy Kaufman, who himself became a wrestler because so much of his other work incorporated a form of this same kayfabe.
You might be twice as big as me, but I've wrestled women that are twice as big as me, and I've mopped the floor with them. And that's what I'm gonna do with you, Mr. Lawler. You challenged me to a wrestling match. I think you bit off a little more than you can chew. How tall are you, Susan?
6 foot.
And how much do you weigh?
327.
327 pounds. That's a lot more than you weigh, Lawler. Okay? Watch this. Come on, baby! That's what's just gonna happen to you, Lawler! See? Come on, baby! Come on!
Andy, I think you really hurt her.
Doesn't matter. She doesn't have any money. She's poor. She can't sue me. See, I can do anything I want!
Put the camera off.
Come on.
Shut this camera off.
Some people have compared pro wrestling to a melodramatic soap opera, but I think it more closely resembles a modern pantomime show with all of the camp overacting and audience interaction. It's a form of entertainment that, much like clowning itself, I don't fully understand. But also, much like clowning, it involves a tremendous amount of physical training and skill. And one wrestler who was recognized for his skill was Matt Bourne, who played Doink the Clown. Doink was introduced into WWF in the early 90s as a mysterious clown who started appearing in the stands at every fight, and pulling pranks on the wrestlers and pulling pranks on the audience.
Uh-oh. It looks like Bam Bam's gonna get all wet here. Maybe the end of the clown. Bam Bam warning the clown. Go ahead, douse him, hit him with a... That wasn't water, that was only confetti. If that had been water, I think Bam Bam would have had a little fun with the clown. Bam Bam Bigelow doesn't know quite what to make of the clown. I don't know that we do either. I think he's funny. He thinks he's funny.
Eventually, he started wrestling in his own matches, and crucially, Doink played the part of the heel, which is a pro wrestling concept that is very similar to the pantomime villain.
Yes, I am evil. Because in this world, evil pays, which is why I live in this magnificent palace. And you have that shirt. Good God, sir. Look at you all with your silly shoes, your nonsensical sweaters. You make me sick.
He is supposed to goad the audience into booing him by saying outrageous things and doing outrageous acts in the storyline.
Oh, that's despicable.
Doink was a heel who reveled in the comedy of other people's misfortune, known for his over-the-top personality and maniacal laugh. There's ghosts, werewolves, and undead mummies. Captain Spaulding is a recurring clown character in the horror movies of Rob Zombie, another famous shock rocker. A 2014 film simply called Clown incorporates body horror, as the main character puts on a clown costume that he finds in an old property he's selling, and he realizes he can't take it off. He realizes that the wig has now become his actual hair, and when he pulls his nose off, a huge chunk of his skin comes off with it. The suit is forcing him to become a clown, whether he likes it or not. And then he finds out that the original clown was actually a deadly creature called the Clown, a demon who eats children, and that the diamonds on Harlequin's motley were actually mimicking the scales on the Clown's body. This is the most extreme form of the clown as mutilation, and it combines the eldritch horror of Stephen King's It with the body horror of The Man Who Laughs. And then there are, of course, the Terrifier movies, starring Art the Clown, who has become the most famous horror villain of the 21st century, and unlike a lot of scary clowns, does all of his work in pantomime.
Everyone's favorite thing about circus shit, the motherfucking clowns!
Every time we see a new leap forward in the world of animation, clowns show up. You had Coco the Clown, you had the clowns from Dumbo, being Walt Disney's fourth feature film, you had the clown from Red's Dream. One of the biggest new breakthroughs for the animation community is the rise of the YouTube animation studio. After one of the first major breakthroughs in this area, the pilot of Has-Been Hotel, we got the spin-off show Helluva Boss, which takes place in hell and all of the characters are demons. But one striking thing about it is the preponderance of clowns and circus imagery. This version of hell is a place where clowns and the circus never fell out of fashion, and in fact they seem to have become more popular than ever before, which I guess makes sense if we view the clown as a demonic killer. The place where he would have the greatest longevity and be respected the most as a celebrity and an artist would be in hell. Although despite the fact that these characters are literal demons from hell, and one of them is even literally a serial killer, the show doesn't really emphasize the scary or creepy side of this. It takes a rather ironically mundane approach to this concept, and instead the clown characters in Helluva Boss fit more snugly into the sad clown trope. The titular boss himself is Blitzo the Clown. He grew up in the circus and then failed to capture the audience's sympathy, so he turned to being an assassin.
Are you still a circus clown?
Oh, no, not anymore. No, I kill people now.
He has so much resentment for his failed life as a clown that he has gone so far as to strike the O off of the end of his name. Blitz is an example of something that I don't think we've covered yet. The failed clown, the retired clown, the clown who wasn't good at being a clown, and so he had to hang it up and try something else. I guess it's interesting because clowning is quite a skilled profession, even though we associate it with incompetence. But the incompetence of a clown is feigned incompetence. It takes quite a bit of skill to convincingly appear as if you don't know what you're doing. The other major clown character in Helluva Boss is Fizzerali, played by Alex Brightman, who, what do you know, also plays Beetlejuice in the Broadway musical. Fizzerali is another example of the disfigured or disabled person as a clown, because he had his arms, legs, and horns blown off in an explosion at the circus, but then he gets prosthetic limbs to replace his old ones, which allows him to do much more with his act than he ever could before, which I guess brings to mind Patch Adams with his amputated leg. But notably, much like the Joker, Fizzerali's white-face clown look is not face paint, rather it is a disfigurement. His face was disfigured to look permanently like a clown because of the explosion, because the imps in this show develop white patches when their skin heals from wounds or burns. A clever little detail that I like is that when Fizzerali was blown up, he happened to be wearing a false red clown nose, so that is the one part of his face that wasn't burned by the hellfire, and that's why his nose is the one part of his face which is still red. Much like Canio from Pagliacci, Blitzo, even though he is no longer a clown, still has to put on the costume. Metaphorically speaking, he has to pretend to be this fast-talking, wisecracking, horny jackass because it's the only way for him to cope with the pain of his extreme inferiority complex. Fizzerali, because of his mutilation, feels like he's been turned into something inferior, despite his talent. He always feels like he has something to prove, that his skills are the only thing that matters about him, because otherwise, he's just a broken, limbless stump of a man. We see how the clown affects both tragedy and horror in ways that kind of intersect each other in this series. These story elements are really just the reappearance of very old tropes that keep manifesting in different ways through the years.
Look, I know what it's like. One day you're somebody in the real world doing important things, and then the next you're just a weird little cartoon jester. You want to hold on to that part of you that still thinks it's part of that world. But in the end, what does it get you? Whether we like it or not, all we are now is a bunch of cartoon characters.
We're still people, though, right?
I thought we were at first, but as time goes on, we just end up falling into our archetypes.
The other major YouTube animation project to feature clowns is the amazing Digital Circus, and this show also has a horror element to it, although like Helluva Boss, it doesn't handle the subject the way you might expect. The clowns in this show are not the scary part. Well, maybe a little, but it's really the world that they're in, which is scary. But even then, it isn't scary in a spooky way. It's not a dark carnival. The horror of the Digital Circus is an existential horror of being transformed without your consent into a cartoon jester and thrown into a fake computer-generated environment permanently without even having a full grasp of your memories from your previous life. The characters in the circus are forced into being entertainers for a mysterious, silent audience who they never get to see or interact with.
So, our entire existence here is just LARPing.
And the big danger of the show is the risk of going insane. as happened to Kaufmo the Clown, who was driven crazy by his search for an exit door, which everyone else thought he was just hallucinating.
The creature you see before you is one I've been pursuing for years. Not quite a man, but not quite an animal. Something unholy, something evil. I took it upon myself to spend every waking moment doing all I could to protect my family from the creature, hoping that when I'd eventually killed it, I would be freed from this awful feeling, this inescapable dread.
This show has a unique take on the idea of the clown as a mutilation. Rather than having their bodies altered into the shape of clowns, their minds are transplanted into these CGI character rigs, and they have no say over what their new bodies will look like, which causes a great distress for some of them.
God, looks stupid.
Usually in sad clown stories, the sad clown is alone in his grief, while the audience laughs at his pain. But in this show, part of the theme is finding a sense of reality, despite the painful unreality of their world.
Where's Mom?
You have a mom?
Shouldn't she be here with everyone else? I can't even remember her face. Did she ever have a face? Was anything ever real?
Okay, wait, don't think about that.
To make sure they keep their sanity, they cannot lose their belief that they are real people. And part of that is finding connection with the other victims of the circus, which they have varying degrees of success with. The audience might as well be non-existent to them. We can assume that somebody is watching this experiment, but we don't know who it is, and neither do they, so you never get a sense that these characters feel laughed at, despite their grief or because of it. Although they do sometimes find their mere existence in this world quite humiliating. These shows might represent a sort of abstracting of the concept of the scary clown. It's starting to break down a bit, but I think the clown horror concept really reached its most crucial and vital point right around the time the first Terrifier movie came out.
Good morning. Well, whether they are pranks, threats, or actual sightings, police and other officials have to take them seriously as a potential threat to safety. And that's starting to drain resources from law enforcement agencies who are also concerned about feeding into hysteria.
In late 2016, there was a resurgence of the clown hysteria of the 1980s. Although this time it wasn't about regular clowns being secretly bad guys. It wasn't the clown as a bad guy that took hold of the public imagination. It was the spooky clown. A clown that isn't necessarily doing anything. He just looks scary. He's just standing there, sometimes with balloons like Pennywise, looking menacing, smiling, often wearing a scary clown Halloween mask, which not only helps obscure the clown's identity, but helps the confidence of the performer who might feel a little insecure about having to smile with his real face to scare people. In the age of social media, this kind of mass hysteria could be a lot more effective than it would have been in the 1980s. In the 80s, there had to be some story to go along with it, because these rumors were being passed by word of mouth. The clowns couldn't just be standing around looking creepy. What kind of a story is that?
A woman claims she was attacked by a man in a clown suit just this morning.
It seems as if a new report of a threatening clown pops up by the hour.
Police have their hands full with these possible sightings.
The clown reportedly appeared inside these woods.
This week, a 14-year-old in California was arrested when he threatened a middle and high school on an Instagram page called Fontana's Killer Clowns.
With a remake of It just around the corner in 2016, I remember thinking at the time that the spooky clown panic of that year must have been some sort of viral marketing campaign for the movie. The timing was just too appropriate. 1 year in advance of the film, a marketing firm decides the best way to drum up publicity would be indirectly. So they hire a few people to spread spooky clown hoaxes on the internet and raise interest in spooky clowns in anticipation for the film. I thought it was a pretty clever move at the time, and I even heard a fake news story years later about a marketing firm coming out and claiming such to be the case, although to my surprise on further research, it seems that isn't what happened. Instead, we might be able to lay the blame on a different filmmaker, a more guerrilla filmmaker named Adam Krause, who made a short film called Gags about a creepy clown and got a guy to dress as a creepy clown in public, which made some people call the police on him even though, again, he wasn't actually doing anything. Actually, he didn't even come up with this idea. There already was an isolated circumstance of this sort of thing that he was riffing on, but it was his recreation that really took off. It was an attempt to create a bit of viral marketing for his short film, but it quickly became a trend that had nothing to do with Gags, and nobody even found out about that movie through this. People all over the country started making their own creepy clown hoax videos, which created the illusion that hundreds of people were just randomly stumbling across this in their day-to-day life. Predictably, this led to police reports and other such silliness that even President Obama was compelled to comment on. Some people took it very seriously, and even one murder took place because of it. I guess the last remnant of this phase of the hysteria still hanging on was Wrinkles the Clown, who got popular in Florida right before the hysteria set in. They made a documentary about Wrinkles, and yeah, I don't know how to feel about it. In fact, I think the guy who made this documentary and the guy who made Wrinkles the Clown in general kind of just sucks. On paper, I like his premise. Wrinkles is a character who is supposed to be an elderly clown who didn't get any business. A failed clown, like Blitzo. He decides instead to hide his identity behind a mask and become a professional spooky clown. When you can't make them laugh, how about try scaring them instead? Parents call him on the phone and leave a message at the beep. And even the sound of his answering machine is enough to send children into a panic. Parents use Wrinkles as a deterrent for their children when they're being too naughty, and the mere threat that Wrinkles might show up at their house to scare them keeps the children in line. Like I said, on paper, I love this concept. It's a perfect modern-day subversion of the freelance birthday clown. However, in reality, I don't think it works. I mean, for one thing, this documentary is all fake. I think the only real part of Wrinkles is the answering machine that you can actually call. Everything else is just for the cameras, and this old man who's hiding his identity is just an actor hired by a performance artist who honestly might just be the same guy who made this overly indulgent documentary about Wrinkles that might as well have been a 36-minute docu-short. I mean, it's so bloated and full of fluff. It just sucks. It's boring. It would have been better if the guy just made a regular fictional movie about this concept. Actually, I think that would have been a great idea, because the pieces are pretty good. I'd love to see a movie about an old, lonely, retired clown who scares children for a living, but a shitty fake documentary? No thanks. Some people have pointed, though, to the timing of all of this spooky clown hysteria, as it happened to occur right around the election of 2016, when a lot of interesting things were happening in the culture that were breaking down its perception of itself and making us ask certain questions. This idea was riffed on in a music video shot by the Prank vs. Prank guy for Snoop Dogg. The idea of the clown was meaning more to us at that time than just simply an article of entertainment. It was beginning to feel like we were living in a clown world. Clowns have throughout history been used as a political symbol or given a political significance in the public consciousness that goes beyond their normal station, which might lead some people to think that clowns have always had a political edge to them, but that's not really true. That's really more of a modern phenomenon. But there have been specific isolated cases in the past where clowning has taken on a political meaning. And for some reason, most of them happened in Russia. I mean, sure, you had John Scoggin and the Feast of Fools, and a few things in Western Europe that hinted at a more subversive edge. But this idea really took shape in a different way in Russia. See, the 17th century was a big religious revival century. That's when the church got a lot more serious about persecuting the Feast of Fools. Oliver Cromwell kind of stamped out a lot of the frivolous Folie traditions in England, a lot of the traditional celebrations have been lost because of him. And in response to Protestantism, the Catholic Church went through its own big reformation at that time and got a lot more serious. And at that same time in Russia, the jongleurs were being persecuted by Alexis I in the year 1648, because it was believed that their merriment might have contributed to a bloody revolt that was crushed in Moscow the year earlier. And yet, despite being banned from the country, they proliferated more than ever in the following centuries, and became more and more political, making fun of the landlords who ruled over Russia's peasantry with an iron fist. A controversial set of clown brothers were Vladimir Durov and his little brother Anatoly. They started their theater clowning during the reign of Alexander III, when censorship in the country was high. Another word for jongleur in Russia was vatagami, which meant of the masses. When the Durov brothers went on stage, they would say, "King of jesters, but never the king's jester. The jester to his majesty the people." Since the Durov brothers were animal trainers and used animals a lot in their act, they would frequently cause a fuss by comparing noblemen, wealthy merchants, and bureaucrats to pigs. If their pig started to wander toward a wealthy gentleman in the audience, they would make a joke about the pig trying to rejoin his family. When the police came to prevent Vladimir from making topical jokes, he showed up on stage wearing a big padlock on his mouth. But Durov's jokes didn't only come at the expense of Russian gentlemen. The German emperor himself, William II, was the target of one of Durov's jokes in Germany, for which he got arrested and banished from the country. Predictably, it also involved a pig. When his pig started gesturing toward a helmet on the ground, he made a pun based on the emperor's name. Asking the pig what it wanted, he responded for it, "Ich will Helm," meaning "I want helmet" in his broken German, or "I Wilhelm," depending on how you hear it. Fans of my fascism videos, if there are any, might be interested to see the face of Filippo Marinetti in this video, because Filippo Marinetti, in case you don't know, was a co-author on the original fascist manifesto, but he's more famous for being the founder of the Futurist movement, which is a movement that greatly influenced fascism in its early years, especially in its aesthetics. Besides Italy, the one other place Futurism was popular was Russia. Interestingly enough, Marinetti wrote a manifesto for variety theater in 1913, where he outlined the direction he wanted for the Futurist theater. Powerful caricatures, abysses of the ridiculous, delicious, impalpable ironies, all-embracing definitive symbols, cascades of uncontrollable hilarity, profound analogies between humanity, the animal, vegetable, and mechanical worlds, flashes of revealing cynicism, plots full of wit, repartee, and conundrums that aerate the intelligence, the whole gamut of laughter and smiles to flex the nerves, the whole gamut of stupidity, imbecility, doltishness, and absurdity, insensibly pushing the intelligence to the very border of madness, all the new significations of light, sound, noise, and language, a cumulus of events unfolded at great speed, of stage characters pushed from right to left in 2 minutes, instructive satirical pantomimes, caricatures of suffering and nostalgia, strongly impressed on the sensibility through gestures exasperating in their spasmodic, hesitant, weary slowness, grave words made ridiculous by funny gestures, bizarre disguises, mutilated words, ugly faces, pratfalls. This last bit about the caricature of nostalgia is important because Futurists didn't like nostalgia and backwards thinking, so it appears Marinetti wanted to represent it in the variety theater, but only through a sort of Stepin-Fetchit caricature of it that emphasized how slow and stupid it was, in contrast to the fast-thinking, fast-acting Futurist. Actually, a side note, Filippo Marinetti's Futurism was very heavily influenced by another early founder of fascism, the celebrity poet Gabriele D'Annunzio, who, much like Marinetti himself, was an eccentric, bloodthirsty aesthete who thought that war and killing were the most sublime joys in life. As such, the French poet Henri de Régnier compared him to a killer clown, saying, "He's ugly, energetic, something cunning and cruel about him, like the Harlequin who killed Pierrot." The next year, Marinetti's Futurist Manifesto was published in Russian, where it had some influence on the world of Russian circus and variety entertainment, considering how popular he was in Russia. One person who it influenced was a futurist playwright named Vladimir Mayakovsky, who made a movie called I Want to Be a Futurist, which starred a popular Russian circus clown named Vitaly Lazarenko, who was a friend and student of Anatoly Durov. Vitaly Lazarenko was a very political clown, especially by the time the revolution happened. He wholeheartedly supported the Bolsheviks and became the first of the Soviet clowns, which would become a major institution in Russia thanks to the Moscow Circus School. The concept of a school to train clowns is something now made famous by Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey for their Clown College, which has since become a generic term used for any school that trains clowns. But it was predated by over 40 years by the Moscow Circus School, which was established in 1926, since the circus was nationalized in 1919. But like everything in a planned economy, it just wasn't really all that good. I know, shocking. It turns out communist clowning isn't as much of a laugh riot as you'd imagine. The main problem was a lack of creativity due to the school being managed by Soviet bureaucrats instead of real people. Charlie Chaplin was all the rage in Russia at the time, and so most Russian clowns abandoned the old whiteface look with the poofy red hair for a look and style that pretty much just copied the Little Tramp. The primary target in the circus for official criticism was the traditional Rigi clown, who was attacked as a sort of mindless buffoon. It was now considered inconsistent for a clown to portray ignoble character. The antics of the Rigi were dismissed as irrelevant to modern man. According to the official Soviet view, such comic business had meaning only before the revolution, for then it might have represented an exaggerated satire on the vulgarity of the Philistines. Since that time, it was claimed, the targets for the clown's jokes, small merchants, idlers, dandies, had been routed. Okay. In 1959, some 500 Soviet clowns were summoned to Moscow where, according to the New York Times, they discussed how to be the life of the party. The clowns performed and received criticism, and it was declared that only 17 of the clowns were worthy of praise. In the keynote address, Yuri Dimitrov of the Arts Institute declared that the clowns must educate the people, fight for new qualities of morality, and expose everything old and reactionary? They were told to be publicists, directing their humor at bureaucracy, inefficiency, and other internal problems. All the clowns agreed they needed more and better writers.
What the hell was that?
Since when do fucking circus clowns have writers? Yeah, this is the kind of brain rot that only intellectuals can achieve. It seems to me that communism and clowning were just not a good mix. But there were a few talented names to come out of that scene. Karandash, for instance. The name Karandash is Russian for pencil, but it's also a play on the French cartoonist Carandash. He was very short. During World War II, he was hired to entertain soldiers, where he would do little skits mocking the Germans. And he did the same thing that the Durov Brothers did, where he brought out an animal on stage and compared it to somebody. This time he had the little dog bark into a microphone at the podium, and then he said it was Joseph Goebbels. Yeah, not very funny. But hey, it's communist clowning. They're doing their best, okay? Give them a break. Charlie Chaplin himself also made a movie at this time called The Great Dictator, where he played a Hitler parody, and at the end gave a really serious, meaningful speech about how we should all stop being racist and mean. Then there was this understudy of Karandash named Oleg Popov, the Smiling Clown, as he was called. He was a graduate of the Moscow Circus School, and he was very popular. He had a very long career. He even did several international tours. Isn't that just fucking peachy keen? Anyway, that's Russian clowning. Switching gears back to the United States, in the early 80s, a couple of bozos named Ivan Stang and Philo Drummond created a religion called the Church of the Subgenius. But before he did that, Ivan Stang made a movie called Let's Visit the World of the Future.
You say you're looking for excitement, adventure, business opportunities, and a real nice place to raise the kids? Well, explore no more. We're there already. Let's visit the world of the future.
I've already talked about this movie in one of my Marilyn Manson videos, but I just have to bring it up here again because clowns are friggin' everywhere in this movie. I really love this movie. Most people haven't seen it, and I think that's a shame because it's creative as hell, even if a lot of it is inspired by Brave New World. For those of you who don't know, Let's Visit the World of the Future is a 16mm pastiche of old 1950s educational films. And in this movie, our host, Mr. Camera, takes us on a look into the future where we see the entire world is paved over with cement and has the face of a smiling clown engraved into it. That's how deep we're going with this commentary. Not altogether far off from the laughing clown god of He Who Gets Slapped. This is literally a clown world. It's a satirical take on the world of the early 70s that posits what life will be like if we embrace all of our capitalist, consumerist, and authoritarian tendencies to completion.
And when shopping time is up, all the products you just bought are flushed away down to the factories to be recycled and back on the shelves by tomorrow.
The world is run by a race of artificially engineered, mutilated bozoid masters who tell everyone what to do and make regular humans, or eunuchs as they are called, work 20-hour shifts every day, and even though they're in charge, the bozos also hate their own lives.
Good. Laugh at me. Hurt me. Use me. And use me again. I'm reusable. Degrade me. I'm biodegradable. Look, we clowns know that this grotesque life is utter hell. All we have to live for is your pleasure. Majority rules. But see, it doesn't hate us. We're just a bunch of happy clowns. We like it this way. See, we figure if it's good enough for the economy, it's good enough for us. You know, clowns that cry get the pie.
It's an interesting movie for showing the development of some ideas we've already traced. It shows that the idea of a race of mutant clowns as something other than human predates the film Killer Clowns from Outer Space by a long shot.
At this time, drugs went temporarily out of style as truth-seeking teenagers turned to the prefrontal lobotomy and bozoid surgery as a permanent high at last, and a joyous rebellion against repressive mental depression.
I've been losing a lot of patience lately. Well, what's been eating them? Me.
Nowadays, humans are crossbred to produce new, superior bozoid strains. These unisexual mutants are further improved through lobotomy, facial surgery, and years of subliminal training in Hi-At's ultimate art form, Buldana.
The clowns in this film are malevolent, so they do fall into the scary clown trope, but nobody cares because they're all just too conditioned to buy into the system. Clowns are a symbol of purely frivolous and skin-deep experience. We laugh at clowns because we have no idea how they actually feel. Clowns exist to alienate themselves from real life. The clown is a packaged and sold parody of the human being, the McDonald's of Homo sapiens. Consumerism is made out to be a hollow, meaningless life, and the clown is the symbol of all of that.
I'm here to make you happy. I'm here to make you gay. It doesn't matter if I'm sad, 'cause I'm only in the way. I'm Uzo the Clown. I'm Pinko, and I hate your goddamn guts. My name is Schizophreno. There's nothing wrong with me. Hi, I'm Porno, and this here's Necrophilia.
Everybody's beautiful in its own way.
As we continue to make our lives more and more artificial, it's like we are putting clown makeup on our faces to make our emotions artificial. We cannot be truly happy or truly sad or truly anything. Our entire world is driven by the drugs that our hard-working bozoid masters graciously let us inject 5 times a day. While the Russian clown made jokes at the expense of authority, these bozoid masters are our authorities. And that's kind of interesting because before, the clown was only ridiculous insofar as he acted ridiculous for entertainment. But now, the clown himself is Vladimir Durov's pig, the creature of ridiculous comparison, and that's reflected in the way we use the word clown. In 1904, the French syndicalist Georges Sorel, also a distant ancestor of fascism, wrote to his friend Benedetto Croce that socialist parties in France and Italy had become a clown exercise. Clown has become an insult for anybody we feel is incompetent, intentionally or otherwise. It's a mark of derision against politicians for playing into what we've termed the political circus, a culture of masters who are all bending over backwards to entertain us and placate us with shiny distractions and nonsense instead of doing their fucking jobs.
Burn the circus down, 'cause the world is full of clowns. They're all stupid and they're proud, painted smiles on their mouths. I don't hang with bozos, homie, I can't be around you. Anyone who knows me knows my feet don't fit in clown shoes.
It's enough to make a man ask himself, why so serious? In the mid to late 2000s, there were 2 movies that made a huge impression on the political community, and both were based on comic books. One of them was V for Vendetta, a movie that altered the politics of Alan Moore to be a little bit more vague and nondescript, but nonetheless exposed a large audience to this story for the first time, which led to a pretty fascinating adoption of the Guy Fawkes mask as a ubiquitous political symbol for resistance to authority and tyranny worldwide. Every major protest around the world that involves resisting global financial elites and powerful politicians since the release of this film, from Occupy Wall Street to the Arab Spring and the Hong Kong protests, has made use extensively of this Guy Fawkes symbol. While this is not directly related to clowns, it does have some interesting crossover with another culturally prominent character who appeared on the scene at around the same time, Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker from Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. Much like Hugo Weaving's portrayal of the titular V, who always wears a mask, the Joker is represented by his iconic mask of face paint, with the darkened eyes and the smudged red cheeks which cover scars from when his face was mutilated in the shape of a smile. And just as V is a symbol of anarchy, the Joker is also a symbol of anarchy, which is something that seems to have been acquiring a certain mystique in the 2000s. Thanks to the rise of high-tech surveillance, the internet, and certain political realities unfolding like the War on Terror, based on certain false premises like Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction, which made people wonder what else the government could be lying about. Libertarianism became very popular in the 2000s, and conspiracy theories entered their golden age, which I guess they're still in to this day. It's enough to make a man just want to tear the whole system down. V and the Joker are both terrorists, but they're interesting, theatrical, eccentric versions of what a terrorist could be. They're pantomime terrorists. They play the same archetypal role of the Islamic terrorists, who we've all been conditioned to hate, but we kind of like them. When the government calls these people terrorists, we don't really listen to them. A character like V could inspire people to take the world into their own hands and undermine the system from the inside out for the sake of liberating the populace from tyranny, hence why the Guy Fawkes mask has been adopted by the anonymous hackers of 4chan as their symbol. This is the red-pilled terrorist. However, a character like the Joker is the black-pilled terrorist. This character doesn't want to liberate the populace from tyranny. He wants to undermine the populace's faith in its own humanity. He wants to expose the clownish insanity of humanity to itself.
See, their morals, their code, it's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. See, I'm not a monster. I'm just ahead of the curve.
Heath Ledger's Joker is not just a psychotic killer clown. He's a psychotic killer clown who is also a philosopher of chaos, and believes it's his role in the universe to cause chaos to make life more interesting, and to put us face to face with our own hypocrisies.
Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos. I'm an agent of chaos.
And whether we like to admit it or not, a lot of us could not only admire this portrayal of the Joker, we could also relate to it on some level. Because when the world of the civilized people is so fake, so hypocritical, so up its own ass with morals that has no intention of following, how could you not want to burn this whole damn thing to the ground? How could you not want to mock this corruption by openly defying the rule these civilized people laid down?
Nobody panics when things go according to plan, even if the plan is horrifying. If tomorrow I tell the press that, like, a gangbanger will get shot, or a truckload of soldiers will be blowing up, nobody panics, because it's all part of the plan.
The 2000s were a time of strange disillusionment. The problems that to us feel so fatiguing and mind-rottingly dreary today back then had an air of novelty to them. Like the circus just entered town and we all paid admission. But by 2015, things were starting to change, and one man was responsible for all of it. Donald Trump is the biggest whoopee cushion ever put under the seat of America. A life constantly in the spotlight with the brand he'd built bullishly over 40 years of hard work, a reputation that already preceded him as a clown, not to be taken seriously, a caricature of a selfish, greedy rich man.
I sort of love and hate him at the same time. I mean, I think he has, a monumental ego.
He comes off as being very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Arrogant?
Yeah, he's arrogant.
He said, I think Donald Trump is an artful liar. I think he is a greedy, vicious, and arrogant man.
Well, I don't know, is that supposed to be a compliment or not? I'm not sure.
And then, in the last 10 years of his life, as we've seen it, has capped all of that off with becoming both Jesus and Satan incarnate. Somehow, the biggest fucking joke in existence is now the most important man alive, who everyone has to have an important opinion about. It is an utter mockery of everything that we are, and we deserve it. I'm still whipping my head around following the Doppler effect on this one. I mean, it's a godforsaken moment to remember. Because even if the Donald Trump presidency results in no lasting major consequences for the practical side of this country's history, which these days seems less and less likely, he will go down in legends and stories for the psychological effect he had on this country and the world at large. And that is the secret weapon of a clown. Psychology. Just look at this man's orange skin, his poofy blonde hair, its physicality, the way he carries himself, the exaggerated, cartoonish way he talks. This is a man who has a very peculiar image, a comical image, an image that makes a lot of people laugh just looking at him, and which is also borne out in his behavior.
His visceral response to attack people on their appearance, short, tall, fat, ugly. My goodness, that happened in junior high. Are we not way above that? Would we not all be worried to have someone like that in charge of the nuclear arsenal?
Mr. Trump. I never attacked him on his look, and believe me, there's plenty of subject matter right there. That I can tell you.
He's the fool who put donkey ears on all of our heads. He says outrageous things that no politician would have said in the past. He does outrageous things that no politician would even attempt in the past, and he gets away with it.
Imagine if I had done any of this. Let me just, I just want to be clear about this.
Donald Trump is the man who clowned on our entire political system and came out on top. He let the world burn around him like the Joker, and I guess given the fascination with characters like the Joker, this was kind of the president America was ready for.
I mean, I know you're a sophisticated guy. The world is a mess. The world is as angry as it gets. Well, you think this is going to cause a little more anger? The world is an angry place. All of this has happened. We went into Iraq. We shouldn't have gone into Iraq. We shouldn't have gotten out the way we got out. The world is a total mess.
We're in a new age of politics where clowns are king. No longer is he relegated to entertaining at court. The jester is now wearing the king's crown, sitting on the king's throne, holding the king's scepter. The more outrageous you can be, the goofier you look, the less like a typical politician you seem, the more people hate you, but the more people like you at the same time. And that's forever the paradox of the clown. The ugly is very appealing to man. One shrinks from the ugly yet wants to look at it. It's the same old story. Do we want to make a mockery of our institutions or don't we? We can't decide. We're all so confused. The world now feels like it's run by clowns, and that's where we are today. Let me tell you a joke. What do you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him and treats him like trash?
I'll tell you what you get! Call the police! Get what you fucking deserve!
When 2019's Joker came out, I declared it the movie of the decade, which was easy because the decade was already over. When I say movie of the decade, I do not mean best movie of the decade. I mean the movie that defines the decade more than any other. And it's wild that just 11 years after our last iconic portrayal of the Joker, we get another one that's equally daring and interesting, equally iconic, and also won the Best Actor award at the Oscars. Superhero movies were the biggest trend in the business in the 2010s, and are still very popular today. Mass shootings where mentally ill people kill large numbers of bystanders were all the rage. Wall Street was the subject of a significant protest early in the decade. 80s nostalgia was also very in. Everything about this movie feels like it was designed perfectly to sell in the year 2019. This is the Joker if he were a sad clown. The Pierrot of Jokers. There is even a part where he smears blood on his smile, just like Tabaran's wife did to him in the play by Catul Mendes. He's a broke, psychotic man working as a freelance clown for an agency, doing odd gigs to make ends meet, while he takes care of his deluded mother and dreams of someday being somebody important, somebody who can bring smiles to the world's faces. It's another example of the failed clown trope. A rather new addition to the clown trope catalog, but one that I like quite a lot. The way he unravels unexpectedly turns him into a sort of dark mirror of what he always wanted to be, an icon, but not of pure wholesome joy, rather of the joy experienced by taking out your revenge on the world around you. The joy of murdering your own dreams, represented symbolically by him murdering his own mother, the woman who he took care of for a good chunk of his life, and who also inspired him to have this wholesome kind of dream about becoming a great comedian.
I used to think that my life was a tragedy, but now I realize it's a fucking comedy.
He also has this condition where he sporadically laughs when he's in emotional distress, which is very similar to Luigi in Laugh Clown Laugh. It's interesting the little connections you find going way back in the past, and none of this is original. The clown in 2019's Joker is a symbol of freedom. After the millionaire Thomas Wayne calls the downtrodden people of Gotham clowns, in the wake of Joker's killing of the 3 Wall Street guys, the clown becomes a symbol for a mass protest movement against people like Thomas Wayne, culminating with his death.
Hey, Wayne! You get what you fucking deserve. No, pal!
When Arthur Fleck dresses as a clown, he wants to make the world smile, and that's what he gets in a weird, twisted way. It makes him happy. Being accidentally at the center of this movement gives him that feeling of importance that mentally ill loners often crave, and a sense of freedom that he never had before. But I like the fact that, true to the modern perception of clowns, Arthur Fleck isn't very funny. He writes down the wrong notes at the comedy shows he goes to, and he even laughs at the wrong moments. He doesn't understand comedy at all, and maybe that's because of his condition. When you lived your whole life laughing when you should be crying, that's bound to alter your sense of humor a bit. Eventually, it seems like he learned to find humor in his own sadness, and to find humor in the sadness of other people, which makes him the ultimate sad clown, but also a killer clown. Joker is a movie that combines so many of the clown tropes into one neat little package, and it does it very well. Thus, we've seen the clown finds himself a place in the whole gamut of human emotion. The clown is funny. The clown is sad. The clown is racist. The clown is scary. The clown is even political. The clown is sexy?
I've been DMing you for a while, and I think you're so gorgeous and hot, and I think we have something in common.
Yeah, we did.
You know what I mean? Right?
What could that be?
So I got a question to ask you.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to have clown sex?
Oh my God, I'm so down.
Yeah, believe it or not, clowns are sexy. Coulrophilia is the opposite of coulrophobia. People with coulrophilia get a little enjoyable rush of excitement when they see a clown.
I mean, I like clowns. I got a clown tattooed on my arm. I want to go to the circus and I see the clowns. All I want to do is screw them. I love clowns, man. That's all I want. I've always liked clowns. You know, it really isn't that weird. It really isn't.
So you can be like with a regular guy and you ask him, as long as he puts on a clown's outfit, then you can get into it.
Any guy, as long as they put on
Any
a
guy?
clown. Any guy.
But I guess it's not that hard to understand. I mean, we all know goth girls are sexy, so that's only like, what, 2 steps removed from a clown girl? I am a very lucky man. Roughly 10 years ago, I completely opened up to my then girlfriend of a few months, admitting everything to her. That I loved seeing girls get pied in the face, and have buckets of slime dumped on their heads, and that what I promoted as an irrational fear of clowns was to hide the fact that I was actually heavily aroused whenever I saw a female clown. That I really just wanted to dress in baggy pants, wear grease paint and a big nose, hurl pies, spank with rubber chickens, and have a good silly fuck. She said, okay. It was no big deal. Years of repression and guilt, and I had nothing to fear. She loved me and was willing to indulge in my fetish, sparingly. I felt like the luckiest guy in the world.
Does that mean you're down to clown?
It's interesting that clowns are sexy because I think to many of us the idea of a clown is something not just unsexy but devoid of sexual energy. It isn't so much that the clown is a turnoff, it's more that the clown is a eunuch. The clown as a children's entertainer is a boy who never grew up. To imagine Wrinkles the Clown getting his dick sucked would just be a little bit strange. As part of the clown's dehumanization process, he lost the ability to feel arousal. And yet, when you watch any of these sad clown dramas from the late 19th and early 20th centuries, sexual arousal seems to be the main thing driving these plots forward. Perhaps that's why the clown always loses in the end. His romantic dreams can never be fulfilled because he is not seen as a man, and therefore he cannot be the object of a woman's affection. He can only be in the friend zone.
All right, here's your boyfriend, Andy. You don't know why you're here. Fine, okay.
I have a clown fetish, and I'm gonna tell you straight out that I'm sexually attracted to clowns. And you think it's weird, and you think it's sick, and that's why I don't want to deal with it anymore. I don't want to deal with this judgment of character from you because, you know, I think that this is natural. I've read about it in books too. I mean, other people have this, and you're just closed-minded, and I don't think you understand me.
You're not serious.
Yes, Andy!
He's not just clowning around, I'll tell you that.
No! I mean, you don't take me seriously.
So what does that entail?
So,
That's sick.
Clown? No, it's not sick. People dress up in clown outfits, and you know Matt, your best friend? I've been sleeping with him for the past 5 months because he dresses up like a clown for me, and he understands what I like.
Here's Matt.
I've always treated you right.
You look like this? You look like this? No, I don't see you dressed
How long you been with her and you can't even please her after 2 years? What are you? I pleased her more in one night than you have that.
Kiss the clown! Kiss the clown!
Although the big exception to clowns being eunuchs seems to be the scary clown. The scary clown, as opposed to the funny clown, by contrast, is very sexual.
Nice fucking model!
I'm an 18-year-old chick, and, well, I'm not really sure how it all started, but I've always thought of clowns as being so sexual and crazy. I get turned on by the way they act and make perverted jokes. The makeup and clothes are really fun and exciting. Recently, I went to Halloween Horror Nights and had a blast. At the center of the amusement park, there were these clowns just messing with people and scaring them. The main clown was on a podium. I went to go get a picture with him, and he said, "Hey, how about you and me go behind that ice cream truck and I give you a little popsicle treat, eh?" He pulled me closer to him with the cane, and I almost went crazy. I wanted to fuck that guy in the costume so bad. I don't see clowns as innocent childhood ideas. I see them more as erotic fantasy sex trips.
Clown sex involves at least makeup, right? If not some outfitting, maybe a nice bow around the or something to decorate.
Perhaps clowns are sexy because they are scary. Perhaps the grotesque oddity of a clown's appearance has a certain charm to it just because it's so crazy. If you're looking for an unhinged, out-of-bounds sexual experience, hook up with a clown.
A college professor with an apparent clown fetish offered to pay students in return for allegedly letting him paint their faces. Well, now he's out of a job.
There's just something about becoming a clown. Your face underneath all that makeup, it's silly, exciting, humiliating, liberating, and sexy all at the same time. At least for me. Several times during college, I grew a beard, but I would always end up shaving it off so I could paint my face like a clown. I find it is such a turn-on to think of a guy protesting, adamantly refusing to wear clown makeup and a clown costume, swearing up and down that he is not a clown, will not dress up like a clown, yet somehow he ends up dressed and painted up like a clown anyway. Somewhere in my childhood, I also discovered that I love seeing guys hit in the face with a nice, thick cream pie. And of course, getting hit in the face with a pie or 20 myself. Becoming a clown and getting pied is a big turn-on for me. I would love to find a guy someday who understood this, who loved to take or throw a pie, loved clowns, or loved being a clown. Part of the fetish for some people seems to involve transformation, especially involuntary transformation. And we've seen how this is a theme that plays out in the context of mutilation, or digitally, as in the Amazing Digital Circus, but not so much as a function of normal dressing up. However, humiliation is a part of this. Humiliation is an important part of the sexual experience. A lot of people find sexual arousal in humiliation. And the idea of being involuntarily transformed into a clown is, well, a very erotic experience for a lot of people.
The better the impression, the more they want a piece of you they can take home and fuck. Don't you want that, Fizzy? To be fucked?
I mean, no, not really, actually.
Fizzy, I'm not gonna lie. I want that.
The sexy clown as a concept doesn't really get explored much in film, but we do see a pretty good example of it played out in Joker Folie à Deux, which is the sequel to 2019's Joker. You see, in the Batman comics, the Joker has a girlfriend named Harley Quinn. She was a creation of the Batman cartoon show from the 90s. And she has this funny little Brooklyn accent and always calls the Joker Mr. J. Now, some people find Harley Quinn sexy already, but her sex appeal was really exploded when Margot Robbie played her in Suicide Squad, a movie that also notably had a pimp Joker played by Jared Leto with his shirt off for much of the movie. But in Joker Folie à Deux, Harley Quinn is basically a groupie who's attracted to the Joker and decides to commit herself to Arkham Asylum so she can have a chance of meeting him. Much like how the rest of the clowns in Gotham idolize the Joker, Harley Quinn romanticizes him. But what she's in love with is not Arthur Fleck. It's the Joker. It's the clown persona, or clownsona, that he puts on to set himself free and become something larger than himself. Nowhere is this more brought into focus than when Harley Quinn visits him in his cell and puts clown makeup on him before they fuck. The Joker, the clown, is what she's attracted to. And at the end of the movie, when Arthur breaks down on television and explains that the Joker was never real and that he was always just Arthur, Harley Quinn decides that she doesn't want anything to do with him anymore, because he gave up on the fantasy, and the fantasy was all that she was attracted to. The crazy man with no limits who was willing to challenge authority with a smile on his face. Geiru Tonedo from the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney games has inspired a new wave of memes all focused around the portmanteau Clussy, which has brought about the question of clown sexiness into mainstream meme conversation. Is there something inherently desirable about Clussy, and why? And so more and more people have been discovering the potential of incorporating elements of clown aesthetics into the world of fashion. Clowncore is a new wave of aesthetics that incorporates clown and circus features into a person's style. The world of high fashion has been ridiculous for a long time, so I suppose it was overdue for a straight-up clowncore trend to become popular in it. In 2023, various designers started making clown and Harlequin-inspired outfits for their models, and the fashion icon Harry Styles himself wore a Harlequin leotard at the Grammy Awards that year. For many clowns, clowning is an important part of their identity. It's not just a job for them. It's a dream job. It's something that gives them fulfillment in life.
If I don't get picked to be a clown this time, I'll try again next year and the year after that until I finally make it or until I die, because that's my dream and that's what I'm gonna be.
And it is something that not everybody understands. I mean, I don't understand it, even after making this extensive and thorough treatment on clowns and doing my best to embrace the world of clowning. It's still just kind of weird to me, in the same way blackface is weird to me. And you know what? I kind of like that. I think a major reason why I chose this topic was because I wanted to expand my horizons and understand a subculture that I've always known about but paid little attention to over the years. Everybody has some idea of what a clown is, but few people have really taken the time to understand it in all its complexity like John Tosin did. He's the guy who wrote the best book on clowns you'll ever find. It was written in the 70s, so it's, you know, somewhat outdated at this point, but pretty much all the information that I had about historical circus and theater clowns was taken from that book. And without his research, I don't think these videos could ever have been as good as they are. But yeah, I think I like learning about stuff that maybe I have a connection to on some level, but is still just a little bit too eccentric and strange for me to really embrace. Maybe that's why I'm so interested in fascism and furries. Even Marilyn Manson kind of falls into that category for me, as, you know, I'm not a big fan of heavy music. I'm not a goth. If it's too relatable, it's not interesting enough. I like things that I don't understand. But I had a lot of fun making this series. I really enjoyed it. I really learned a lot. It helped clarify and congeal a lot of interesting things about themes that I've noticed in culture. And, well, I think that's a really important thing that clowns can offer that a lot of people don't really take note of.
La commedia è finita!